By comparing the number of prosecutions to the overall population, it showed that 1 in every 2,000 in England and Wales had been prosecuted for this crime from 1997 to 2017. When it came to Pakistanis, it was 1 in 1,700. In Rochdale, 1 in 280 Muslim males over 16 were prosecuted. In Telford, it was 1 in 126. In Rotherham, 1 in 73. The report pointed out that many abusers take no responsibility for their crimes and plead not guilty. They take no responsibility because they can get away with it. When they return from their limited punishments, the community often does not ostracize them. And as these damning figures show, with such high rates of prosecution, their crimes can't have been a secret. This lack of responsibility and community punishment has been linked to clannish attitudes among British Pakistanis. To learn more, I sat down with Wazeek, a British Pakistani Muslim researcher.
I think there is a culture within some of these British Pakistani communities where the perpetrators feel that white working class girls do not equal the same as those within their own community.
When Ruby was interviewed, in her video interview, she said in evidence that she had been chosen by this man because she was a white girl and these men wanted a white girl to abuse. She also talked of them passing her round in a circle as though she was a ball with a circle of Pakistani abusers who would go into a flat and they would use that flat for the night. They'd take one white girl into that flat and they would all abuse her.
But many people were desperate to blur the lines. One of the ways they ensured the focus was not put on British Pakistanis was through the use of the umbrella term Asian, which deflected attention away from the sad reality.
I think the term Asian isn't always appropriate. When we do look at, again, the demographic of perpetrators, we are seeing that they're mostly British Pakistanis.
I know that these gangs are often referred to as Asian grooming gangs. I would always say, well, I have yet to come across any man from Thailand or Japan or China who are involved in these grooming gangs. They are predominantly Pakistani, British, Muslim men. And that is not racist, it is a fact.
If the police, councils, government and the media had confronted the stark truth about the grooming gangs, the abuse of thousands of girls could have been avoided. Failing to accept these facts has allowed hundreds, if not thousands of abusers to hide behind the veil of political correctness.
We've seen some British Pakistanis who have been reluctant to deal with this issue and have been in absolute denial that this issue is taking place. The reason why is because they don't want to bring shame on their own family.
I think the racial dynamics of this particular kind of sexual abuse have meant that it has not been discussed in the way it should have been in the media, because people in positions of authority have always been frightened of being called racist. With this particular kind of crime, it is irrefutable in my experience from all the cases that I have dealt with that the vast majority of the abusers in these cases are Pakistani men.
Political correctness doesn't just mean good manners, it has consequences. And one of those consequences was the abandonment of thousands of girls to years of abuse for fear that tackling the problem would look racist. Even now, there are those who deny the awkward reality. When the independent inquiry into child sex abuse investigated the issue in 2022, they looked at areas where grooming gangs had not been found. Rotherham was mentioned only once in 400 pages. It found the police were still regularly failing to collect data on ethnicity. A Home Office spokesperson said that it is now mandatory for police forces to record the ethnicity of those arrested. Telford and Wrekin Council said that after the inquiry into child sexual abuse in the town, the council immediately accepted all of the recommendations and that they've subsequently improved. Rotherham Council said they were profoundly sorry for the pain this has caused, and that care for the most vulnerable children has been transformed since 2014 and is now of a good quality. South Yorkshire Police Deputy Chief Constable Tim Forber said that they had listened to the voices of those affected and learnt the lessons of the past, and that they would act quickly to safeguard those most at risk. West Mercia Police said that significant improvements have been made and that they continue to improve and develop our understanding. Greater Manchester Police did not respond to our request for comment.
I don't smoke, drink or do drugs, and I've escaped that life. I have a daughter, but the men who raped me in Telford in South Wales are still living there, still working there, still running the kebab houses. My life was ripped to shreds, but theirs have barely changed.
I think it's still a problem throughout the country. You know, Rotherham's not unique. We've not got an electric fence around us, and this is happening everywhere, in every town, in every city. And I think, you know, there's a lot of things that can be done, and I think it's got to start at government level. They made the judgment that these children didn't matter, and these children, more than any other children, needed somebody to fight their corner, and yet they were just left high and dry. And I want to see chief constables, I want to see senior officials held legally to account for their neglect of duty, because if that was me as an ordinary detective constable who had not recorded a criminal damage, I would be facing disciplinary action and probably a prosecution. So why are they any different? I don't even know if the word's angry. I think the word's probably shocked that we sit here today in 2022 and not one person has ever been held accountable for what happened in this town, ever. Even when the evidence proves without a shadow of a doubt they knew about it.
What were being normalised were the rapes, the abuse, older men being passed off as older boyfriends to children. It was normalised, you know. There's still two that I know of now that don't realise that they're a victim because they're still in that mindset of that it were normal, it were a part of growing up.
This is going on today. We've been approached by 60 victims in the last 3 days who are currently being failed by the police. It is not a historical problem. It is going on today. Very little has changed. We have seen trials, but all too often these children are still being judged and fobbed off, and that is not good enough.
The grooming gang scandal has now dragged on for decades. Despite the prosecutions, most abusers have still escaped justice. In Rotherham, where the National Crime Agency now says 1,510 girls were raped, only 43 people have been convicted.
People I've spoken to warn me that not only is the abuse still going on, it's actually getting worse.
Despite this, Rotherham has been declared as the 2025 Children's Capital of Culture.
There are also many places across the country where no inquiry has been held into what's going on. If small towns like Rotherham, Rochdale and Telford have produced thousands and thousands of victims, it's likely that the real number across the country is in the tens of thousands.
We need to know what is going on. That's why it is essential that the National Crime Agency launch investigations into any place where credible allegations of grooming gangs have been made. It's why the police need to be held to account, whether it's for failing to collect data on ethnicity
or for not prosecuting criminals. It's also why we need stronger prison sentences for the rapists. No victim should see their abuser walk out of prison after only a few years. For too long, Britain's authorities have looked the other way and failed generations of girls. Now is the time for them to redeem themselves. Because if they don't, the same abuse will just keep happening.